Good afternoon to all the students present for this session and welcome to the ninth unit of Block 3, MMPH002 Human Resource Development Concept. So, students, we have already discussed this concept of human resource development where we have understood that developing the competences of the people, developing the level of commitment of the people, and developing a culture within the organization is what the core objective of human resource development is all about. We have also discussed the way we can assess or the measure the competency levels of the individual employees within the organization through the proper performance appraisal system, performance management system. We had got all those conceptual clarity. Now, in continuation with that, this particular topic where we are going to discuss counseling, coaching, and mentoring today, this is one of the most important, most vital topics of human resource development concept. The reason is when we measure the performances of the individuals and we come out with the basic outcome, what we observe, there are three such category of people, right? The people who meet the standards set by the organization or by the supervisors, by themselves, the people who perform more than the standards as is defined for them, and the people who underperform, people who meet with the non-conformity with the standard set. Now, is whenever we talk of the people who are outperforming or who meet with the standards, it's okay. But the most problematic area is when we do see the people who are not up to the standards, people who have not met with the standards as set. The question is, what are the reasons of non-conformity? We have understood that appraisals only evaluate the performances of the individuals, but when we do take this performance management system and we do merge that performance management system with the basic concept of human resource development, we come out with the concept that the competences of the people should be developed, the level of commitment should be developed. Right? It's more or less we need to work on the loopholes in the process. We need to work on the loopholes of the people itself. So finding out the reasons of non-conformity is the most important aspects. I cannot leave people as such because I know that the productivity of the organization is based on the productivity of the people. And if my human resources are not ending up with the desired level of productivity, then I must take care of them. That is why understanding the reasons of non-conformity is one of the important aspects of the people. And here I need to make an analysis in terms of two such important dimensions where I evaluate the performances of the people in terms of their ability, the skill they do have, and I evaluate the performances of the people in terms of their willingness, their enthusiasm to work, enthusiasm to contribute towards the organization. So if I find out that people do lack in terms of their abilities or skill, I do have all measures for them. I can think of providing them with like the opportunity of training, development, so that their skills can be enhanced, so that their knowledge can be enhanced, their capabilities can be enhanced. But what about the people who do have all the skill, knowledge, abilities with them, but still they don't perform? Basically, they lack in terms of their willingness to perform. They lack in terms of their motivation to perform. They lack in terms of their enthusiasm to perform. What I need to do with them? What could be the solution for them? The only thing that I can do is to counsel them, to coach them, to guide them, to mentor them. Because they don't lack in terms of the skills, knowledge, and abilities. They have it with them. But still they are not performing. The reasons could be anything. It is not that the reasons are only confined to the organizational level of factors. Yes, I do understand, right? Beyond this skill, knowledge, abilities, if I do see the other factors which do affect the performances of the individuals are like the kind of relationship they do have with their superiors or with their subordinates, with their colleagues, the kind of work environment where they do operate, the kind of authority which is being delegated to them, the kind of autonomy which is being associated with their position, the reporting relationships. All of these factors are the factors which are related with the organization. That's fine. But nowadays, with the increasing complexities at the place of work, I know that people do have many more other problems than the problems related to the organization, which we may quantify it in terms of one such thing, that is their personal problems. Reasons could be anything, right? Maybe the family disturbance is going on within the person, right? Maybe the property related issues could be there. Maybe the person is overburdened with financial debt. So these are some of the reasons I have mentioned. Right? Reasons could be anything. Right? So what it happens now, people do, as we have understood human resources as the psychological beings, the sociological beings, right? So they carry their thought processes, they carry their cognitions to the place of work. And if I want productivity from the employees of the organization, I need to ensure that the personal problems of the individuals are also being taken care of. Now, organizations cannot do anything for that, but what we can do is to help the individual employee to cope with his personal problems by himself. And that is why this counseling, coaching, and mentoring is most important aspects of the organization. So at one part where we focus on training and development to improvise the productivity of the employee where he lacks in terms of skill, knowledge, abilities. On the other hand side, we have to depend on the processes of counseling, coaching, and mentoring where the individual lacks in terms of their willingness, enthusiasm, motivation, so that their productivity can be enhanced. So that is why this counseling, coaching, and mentoring is an integral part of the human resource development processes, right? More or less, we correlate it with the performances of the individuals, right? So many times we refer it as performance counseling, performance coaching, or performance mentoring. So it's same for all the purposes to go. So let us understand these three processes in detail. The counseling process or performance counseling process, we say we need to talk of the performance coaching and performance mentoring. The basic objective of this performance counseling is to help the individual employee either to maintain his level of performances or to enhance his current level of performances. By any means, I need to find out the reasons of non-conformity and help the individual employee to overcome with those factors so that the employee can contribute in a consistent way to the organization. That is what we need to understand, right? So basic purpose is to help the poor performers to confront with their performance levels, to understand the reasons of non-conformity. So there is nothing wrong in that. I need to find out, unless and until I need to find out the root cause of the problem, how can I come out with a solution of that particular problem? I cannot leave the employees as it is when it comes to the non-conformity to the standards. No. I need to find out the cause. I need to find out the basic cause of the problem and thereby a solution, right? So counseling process helps in identifying that root cause of the problem, and thereby we need to work with the individual employee himself to find out a solution, of that particular problem. As I said, solutions are not being provided by the organization. Solutions cannot be like, it's organizational related factors, organizations can bring a solution to that. But when it comes to personal related factors, all the individual employees do have a solution with themselves only. What we need to do is to facilitate only. What we need to do is to facilitate only to find out a solution to their problems. Right? So, whenever we do work with that particular individual employee to find out the solution, our objective should be development. We have understood that human resources are the most valuable resources, and that is why we make them assist with human assets of the organization, right? And when we do talk of human beings as the assets, we need to invest on them. We need to think of their growth and development. That should be the prime focus. So instead of terminating the service of the individual employee, it's the easiest of the way to do that, right? So if the employee is not performing, then I can easily terminate the service of the employee. But before terminating the service of the employee, why don't I think of providing him the opportunity for growth and development? Why don't I work on the reasons for non-conformity? Help the individual employee to overcome his reasons, right? And then the employee's productivity can be streamlined at the place of work. And to talk of that. So at one point of time, when I focus on the employees to overcome the factors which hinders their performances, at the other hand, I need to take care of all those employees who are my star performers. I cannot leave them. Someone is performing, it's okay. So if the person is performing and I'll leave him as it is, then what will happen? So gradually, the performance level of that particular employee will go down. What is required is to refresh his skill, knowledge, and abilities. So I need to keep those superstars shining. I need to keep those top performers performing at the level at which they are performing. I cannot leave them. So focus has to be given on both. Those who are performing, let them continue with their performance levels. Let them be enthusiastic enough, motivated enough to continue with the same level. And those who are not performing, they need to be worked on with the relevant aspects so that their performances can be enhanced. So this will help the individual employee to move up in his career goal, career ladder, right? Where we do talk of this career planning, succession planning process. So advancements in career will lead towards financial rewards. Right? So let us help the individual employee to overcome all of those processes, right? All of those factors. So we say this performance counseling is to counsel, guide the employee for greater job effectiveness. That's what we need to understand. But the success of this performance counseling depends on the employee's interest itself. I cannot impose things on the employee. That's what we need to understand. We are not dealing with illiterate employees. We are dealing with knowledgeable resources. So unless and until they are involved, you cannot do anything. That is why we say that whenever we are recruiting people, if the human beings, resources, they lack in terms of skill, knowledge, abilities, still it's manageable because that thing can be developed. But if the employee lacks in terms of his attitude, then it will create a problem for the organization. So employees should have a positive attitude, right? So employees' interest in the process should be there. That has to be there. It is not a one-way drive. Counseling has to be two-way. Right? A climate of openness, mutuality. So let the counselor, whoever it may be, right? Sometimes the organizations do appoint immediate supervisors as their counselors. Okay, that sometimes they appoint specific experts having expertise in the psychology or dealing with the psychology of the people. They can be appointed as counselors, or professional counselors are there, OD consultants are there. So all of them, they can be appointed, right? But unless and until the environment has to be, or environment is open, right? There is a transparent communication happening between the counselor and the employee itself. The process cannot be effective. The process of mutuality has to be there. Let the employee accept the counselor. Let the counselor accept the employee. So it goes from a very professional relationship to somehow a personal rapport building process. Okay. So this will result in a positive work culture, definitely, and with clear expectations, sound feedback system for correcting these deficiencies, and the result orientation. In brief, I'll show you this, the entire process of performance counseling, how does it happen, right? So whenever we do carry out this performance counseling, our objective is to either maintain the level of performances or to improve the level of performance. We want the end result. But where from we to start? We need to start it with developing a clear expectations within the individuals, right? Expectations are to be defined. Now, here, what we need to understand is that these expectations of the people will lead to their performances. We may refer to a particular concept called the Pygmalion effect. Pygmalion effect says, more the expectations that you do have, more is the performances, less the expectations, less is the performance. And to understand that. So, if the employees lack in terms of expectations, then they don't perform. If they, whatever expectations it may be in terms of fulfilling their basic lower order needs as defined by Maslow's, right? Need for, physiological, safety, social kind of needs, right? Need for a house, need for, furnitures, need for bike, need for protecting their life with insurances, whatever it may be, right? And if these expectations will not be there, then people are casual. They don't contribute. They don't have a desire of improving in their own career growth. So what to do with them? We need to set those expectations within the people. Right? So these expectations will lead to achievement of goals. We need to understand that. Right? We need to talk of the expectations leading to the level of performances as said, as the standard, right? But here we need to provide a realistic feedback to the employees of the organization. Realistic feedback. Because our objective is not to terminate the service of any person. Our objective is to help the individual employee to overcome his deficiencies. So there is nothing wrong in identifying the reasons of non-conformity, providing him the actual feedback in terms of his job, in terms of his contribution towards the job and towards the organization. Let the individual employee understand, let the individual employee realize what is being expected from him and what he has performed or what are the reasons he has not performed, right? And to talk of that. So a proper feedback, of course, we'll talk of that. Feedback should be in a positive way, not that in a negative way, but proper feedback should be given to employee, right? So it's not like the earlier days of asset methods or confidential character roles, CCR kind of thing, right? In some of the government organizations, it's still being in practice where the employee is being apprised but is not provided with the relevant feedback. His appraisal is kept confidential. So they call it a CCR, confidential character role. So that is not the right way of improving the employee's performance. That's not the right way of helping the individual employee to overcome his deficiencies, right? So proper feedback systems should be there. And whenever we do talk of this proper feedback system, that will lead to a positive work culture. Positive work culture in a sense. So that will, help the individual employee to create a rapport with the supervisor. That will help the supervisor and the individual employee to develop their interpersonal relationships, develop a level of trust, develop a level of understanding, develop a level of faith of one another. So that will help the individual employee to take autonomy. Supervisors can decentralize their work. Supervisors can delegate their works to the subordinates, right? So that process will break many such barriers that may be there between the workers and the management in the organization, and thus this will lead to a positive work culture, highly positive work culture. And when I do have this expectations of the people clearly defined, when the people understand what is being expected out of them, what are the roles and responsibilities they need to play, what sort of things they need to do, what they should avoid, like that, when these expectations are clear. And after the performances or during the process, we can talk of some mid process evaluations. And if right feedback is given to the employees of the organization, right? So that will lead to a positive work culture. And if these three things will be there, definitely you don't have to be worried for the result. Result will automatically be there. Result will be definite. That's what you need to understand, right? So result will be definite. So what is required is to make the individual employee to participate. So, because most of the time, people do have, or employees of the organization do have this fear psychosis. They don't want to open up. They always do have a threat of losing their job. So that's the reason they don't open up. Right? But you need to encourage the employee to take part in the counseling process, right? And you need to encourage the employee to, come up or open up during the counseling process, right? Basically, counseling is to understand the reasons of non-conformity, and as I said that the reasons are confined to the individual employee only. So let the individual employee to speak, share his ideas, share his thought, right? So as a manager, the process of counseling will be a successful one or a failure one. That depends on how you get yourself involved in the process, right? So as a manager, allow the employee to speak, allow the employee to come out with all of his grievances, right? So let the employee to identify his own reasons of non-conformity, right? So understanding that, the next level is to find out a solution. So never ever impose a solution on the employee. Let the employee find out a solution by himself. So you need to be a facilitator. As a manager, what I need to do is that I need to be a facilitator only in the process, so that the individual, he himself will find out the problems and the solutions to that particular problem. As a facilitator, what is my role? I need to create a positive environment. I need to create a enthusiastic environment. I need to create a participative environment where the worker should be a part of the entire process. Beyond that, I need to check with that particular employee on day-to-day basis whether he is actually improving in terms of his performances or not, whether he is actually overcoming his reasons of poor performance or not. To talk of that, help the individual employee to overcome with little bit of praise every day. Yeah, you're doing a very good job. You're improving. Now you have overcome with your own failures. This sort of things can really help the individual employee to overcome that. Right? So as a as a process, right, we need to understand that the entire system is initiated by the manager. So we call it as a manager initiated strategy for improving the employees' performances. But what we need to understand is this performance counseling is a process where the entire success or failure depends on the level of communication that takes place between the manager and the worker itself. It's not about the communication only. It is about the assessment of the manager. It is about the assessment of the manager. But here, one more thing that you need to understand over here. If the employee lacks in terms of productivity and the reason is genuine, that's okay. Let the employee to understand his reasons of non-conformity. But sometimes, why not I focus upon the stronger aspects of the employee's performances instead of focusing on the weaker aspects of the performances? If the reasons of non-conformity are less, but the employee's performance is more driven by his strengths, so it's always advisable that we should focus on the strengths of the employees, strong aspects of the employees' performances, right? Instead of focusing on the weak aspects. Let the employee grow in his own strength areas, right? So that his strength area can be improved. That's what we need to understand. But objective is to remove these inner obstacles for the outer performances. Inner obstacles, right? So the performance counseling process doesn't focus in identifying the the loopholes in terms of the skill, knowledge, abilities. The objective is to help the individual employee to overcome his own inner obstacles. Inner obstacles are the personal problems, right? Inner obstacles are related with the individual, the perception of the individual with the organization's change. Like nowadays we do talk of as personal problems we have understood. Maybe a financial burden or a family issue, maybe aged parents, whatever it may be, or some sort of problems with the spouse itself, whatever it may be. But most of the time, nowadays, we do see that the organizations are adopting many such strategic decisions, right? Say mergers, acquisitions, buybacks, takeovers, alliances, disinvestments, acquisitions, right? And all of these kind of strategic decisions that is being taken by the organization is a part of their survival strategy. And in the process, some of the organizations in the process of disinvestment, right, as we have understood, disinvested, like we can see it from a public sector organization to a private sector organization, transforming themselves, right? Or the management is transferred to private parties. And mostly people do resist to those kind of changes. What's the reason? The reason is a fear psychosis. Ownership changes, our job is at threat. Ownership changes, we are going to get lower salary, we will be exploited, we will be harassed, we cannot work as of the previous. Now, all these sort of fear psychosis, which is there within the people itself, are the reasons of non-conformity. So, help the individual employee to overcome his personal reasons of fear psychosis, as if we have understood, right? So, there could be many such issues, maybe issues related to the career, where now we understand the basic process of promotions as in two ways, right? There can be a push promotion, there can be a pull promotion, right? And all it depends on the level of vacancies that is there in the upper level of hierarchies, so people can be promoted, right? Now, in the absence of the vacancies, they are upgraded, it's okay. But sometimes when people don't see a growth in their career is at stagnancy, then they lack in terms of motivation. Might be financial, or might be family related issues, financial related issues, any such kind of legal issues, legal complications that the individual employee is passing through, or even at health issues, right? Health issues of self, health issues of the family, whatever it may be. So these are the personal problems which will lead to the performance related problems. Could be anything, as I said. Performance related problem. People will start to be absent from the place of work. Absenteeism will go up. They lack in terms of their moral to work, motivation to work, right? So they will gradually feel tardiness, not interested, not enthusiastic, right? You see the increasing number of drug abuses at the place of work. They'll have frequent conflicts with their higher authorities, maybe subordinates, or with their colleagues even. So interpersonal conflicts will increase, and that will lead to the poor job performances. They cannot focus, right? So when I do see the personal problems of the people, that will lead to the performance related problems. Ultimate impact is on organization. So that will lead to the increased production cost. Wastages will be more, cost of production will be more, right? That will lead to employee turnover. People won't find the organization to be a suitable place to work. So turnover will increase. And as I said, at any cost, I cannot afford to lose employees. No, I have to retain them. So I have to lower this turnover. Interpersonal conflicts will be there. Low morality of the employees will be there. What I need to do? So if I want this organization to accomplish its productivity with a conducive work environment where all the employees should contribute towards the productivity of the employees, the productivity of the organization, then I need to work on the personal problems. That is why this counseling process is important. Counseling process is important. We need to help the individual employee to overcome his reasons of non-conformity, overcome his problems, right? So improve the communication, understand the performances of the individual employee, what contributes to success, increasing the self-esteem, support, guidance, resources as may be there. Help the individual employee to learn. These are some of the basic aspects, principles of carrying out this counseling process, right? The success or failure depends on how do you create a rapport, how do you make the employee involved, how do you make the communication process transparent? How do you develop the level of trust, faith within that particular employee? And if the employee participates, then this counseling process can be. Right? So here we do come out with some of the basic aspects like behavioral support, what we need to do it for improving this counseling process, like giving more managerial time, clarifying the goals, helping the individual employees with proper resources and skills, right? Meeting him, help that individual employee to meet with the job expectations. It should be a continuous process, positive vibes, two-way communication, all of those things, right? And this has to be, in fact, this has to be supported by this benevolent organizational culture where these employees of the organization are treated as the most important assets, right? So higher employee engagement should be there, seamless integration of all the processes, improved communication, lower stress, all of those will be the outcomes of this performance counseling processes, right? So we have understood that performance counseling is a process of identifying the reasons of non-conformity and helping the individual employee to find out a solution of that, right? Helping the individual employee to find out a solution of that with a process of a mutual trust, faith, communication. Now here we come out with the second concept, that is performance coaching. Now performance counseling helps to identify the causes. Performance coaching is to analyze the performances of that individual and his on-the-job behavior, and thereby finding out a way to improve his performances. What we need to do to improve the performances of that individual employee. Let the individual employee to find out, to realize his own potentials, right? Let the individual employee to understand his own strengths and weaknesses. That should be realized by the individual employee itself, right? And the individual employee should acquire more insight into his behavior, right? That's what we need to talk about. Increasing his personal, interpersonal effectiveness through a proper feedback system, encouraging him with setting up the goals for further improvement, right? And atmosphere of sharing and discussing his problem itself. These are the things that we need to consider. But the basic objective of this coaching is what? To help the individual employee to acquire skills for a growth and development of his career. Individual employee should acquire skills for the growth and development of his own career. Let the individual employee to be ready to accept the future responsible positions. So the performance coaching process facilitates in developing all those skill or knowledge or abilities or even attitudes required for the individual employee to move up in his career and to take responsibility in future, to occupy some future jobs which requires the employee to contribute more towards the organization. All of these are the basic aspects of this performance coaching. That is what we need to understand. Right? So whenever I do talk of this performance coaching process, right, it's not only to identify that particular problems, but also to find out a way by which all of these problems can be resolved. Okay? So here a person is allotted to the employees of the organization as a coach. The person is allotted with a coach, and the role of the coach is to ensure that the individual person is well equipped with all the requisite skill, knowledge, and abilities to take up future responsibilities of the organization. That's what we need to understand, right? So the entire coaching process, is carried out in three different phases, right? So the first phase is the phase of rapport building, the second phase is the phase of exploration, and the third phase is the phase of action planning. We need to talk of all of these processes in detail, right? We need to talk of this rapport building as the most vital one out of all these three processes. Reason being that if the employee doesn't accept the higher authorities or any such person who is allotted with the role of the coach, if the employee doesn't accept a particular person as the coach, he will not open up. And if the person will not open up, then that communication will not be there. The sharing will not be there. Revealing the problems will not be there. Nothing is going to happen. Right? So what is required is, as a manager, as a coach, I do have this responsibility of looking into the employees assigned to me. I'm the coach of them. So let me establish a personal rapport with that particular individual employee. Personal rapport. Let the individual employee accept me as his coach, right? Otherwise, will not open up. He will not share his feelings, he will not share his perceptions, not the problems, neither the concerns. Nothing is going to happen. What I need to do? I need to enter into the employee's frame of reference. Rapport building, right? Let the employee understand, let the employee feel that I'm there to help the individual employee to grow in his career. That is what we need to understand. What we need to do for that? Three things. First is, let the employee let the employee understand that you are there to attend that particular employee who is undergoing certain phases of trauma or certain phases of poor performance, whatever it may be. Right? Attendance means you need to give specific time to the individual employee. Whatever it may be. If you have given 15 minutes time to a particular employee, let the employee have the feeling that these 15 minutes is of that particular employee only. So as a gesture, what you can do, you can make your phone to switch off mode to make the employee realize that you are going to attend him for the next 15 minutes or half an hour, whatever it may be. You can give a call to your secretary not to disturb you for 15 minutes or 30 minutes. Right? Or you can take your phone to silent mode, don't disturb mode. Let the employee feel that 15 minutes you are giving is of that particular employee. So he will attend, he will be attended by you. That's what you need to understand. Right? Second is, as a manager, you shouldn't speak more. Let the employee speak more. You need to listen. Right? So, whatever it may be, whatever the reasons may be, whether the employee is coming out with some absurd reasons of his non-conformity, but you have to listen. Right? Let the employee feel that whatever he is telling is not listening, then he will not come up. If the employee feels that whatever he is telling is listened, he will be more involved. Right? So sometimes we come out with some sort of inverbal body languages, right? Like playing with some kind of paper plates, mobile, whatever it may be. So keep the mobile out of it. Or the time you should focus on the employee in listening. Right? And at the same time, the manager should show the gestures of accepting the thoughts or the you know ideas of that particular employee itself. Acceptance has to be there. Otherwise, what will happen? The employee will not, you know, they do come out with some sort of opinion like, huh? Like in past, we have been asked, we have been given with the feedback, but nothing has happened. This time also, it is not going to happen. No. Let the employee do not feel like that. You know? Let the employee feel that his thoughts, his ideas are accepted. So if you do accompany with some sort of paper pad, pen, so you can make a note of the employee's grievances. So this rapport building part actually is to develop a relationship between the employee and the coach itself. The second part is the exploration part itself. So here, the basic objective is to understand the situation, the strengths, weaknesses, problems, and needs of the individual employee. And this is purely related to the performance itself. Right? So, what do you need to do? You need to carry out three such important processes. One is exploring, problem identification, and diagnosis. Exploration is all about looking into the individual traits and characteristics of that particular employee. Right? Looking into his own strengths and weaknesses. That is what. Understanding our own self is all about exploration. Understanding that particular employee is exploration. And that is why I told you in the previous line, okay, you need to make the employee to speak more and more. Unless and until the employee speaks more and more, he will not be able to, drive that employee's profile. Right? So let the employee explore, let the employee, or as a manager, it is my responsibility to explore that individual employee's strengths, weaknesses, the individual employee's skill, knowledge, abilities, whatever it may be. So this phase of exploration is to extract from that individual employee in terms of his strengths and weaknesses. Right? Then the second aspect is to identify the problem. What is the reason for non-conformity? What is the reason of poor performance of that particular employee? Is it related to the employee himself? Is it related to the organization? Is it related to the job? Is it related because of some sort of changes adopted by the organization? Right? So identifying the root cause of the problem is the most important aspect. And then you need to talk of, we said no, the key resultant areas, key potential areas, identifying those KPIs, KRAs are most important aspects. What is the main cause of the non-conformity? That is what we need to understand. Right. Third is the diagnosis of that particular problem. And I used to give an example, always I used to give an example, like who is a good doctor? Whenever we do evaluate a particular doctor as a good doctor or not as a good doctor, what do we see? A doctor who makes a proper diagnosis of the cause of the disease and comes out with a particular medicine at a very lower cost, effective, right, is a good doctor. What is important? Important is diagnosing the problem. So unless and until I understand the root cause of the problem, I diagnose the problem to understand the factors actually which is responsible for the non-conformity, and I can do anything on that now, right? So diagnosing the problem and finding out the solution of that particular problem is what is required. So exploration phase is to make the individual employee to understand who he is, what skill, knowledge, abilities he is having, what are the strengths and weaknesses of that particular employee, what you need to do to improve. Like that only you need to take into consideration, right? So phase of exploration, phase of identifying the problem identification, and the diagnosis. These are the three such important phases of exploration. The third is the action planning phase. Action planning phase is where the objective of the entire process is to help the individual employee to overcome his obstacles and to contribute towards the development of the organization, right? Self-development and development of the organization, right? So here you need to understand that as a manager, as a mentor, as a coach, right? I need to help the individual employee. I need to guide the individual employee to overcome all of these deficiencies, right? So with specific plan of action for the development of the employee, whether you don't require a training program, you don't require some sort of job enrichment programs, you need to go for job enlargement programs, whether you should be sponsored for specific training, specific courses, right? Or increased responsibilities, role. What actually is the solution? We need to find out that. So again, three things are there to take into consideration. What we need to do is to search for the options available to us, right? What can provide us a solution? What can provide us a solution to the problem, the root cause that we have identified earlier? So can I depend on a single solution? So I need to search. I need to search for the different options available to me. Different options available to me. So a single solution won't work. Have 1, 2, 3, 4 multiple solutions. Out of that, the best one has to be taken into consideration, right? You say, then the decision making, right? Out of all those alternatives that you have found out by searching method, right? When you searched for all those alternatives, now you need to help the individual employee to take a decision of his own. Don't take a decision at your end and impose it on the worker. Let the worker have the ownership towards the decision. Let the worker has the ownership towards the decision. That's what you need to understand, right? To take that into account. So finding out the best possible decision, implementing it is what that the manager need to ensure. So we say supporting the entire process, supporting the individual employee to get the desired results, supporting the individual employee to get the desired training, supporting the individual employee to overcome his fear psychosis, whatever it may be, whatever the possible ways it may be, but we need to support the individual employee to come out with his own performances, right? In terms of its resources, in terms of its training, development measures, whatever it may be, all of those we need to take into consideration, right? So that is how we make this performance coaching method a successful one, where we need to understand that here the individual supervisors or the higher authorities are appointed as a coach, and whose basic responsibility is to enhance the career of that particular employee. Right. Towards the end, let us discuss this mentoring. The concept of mentoring is driven from a story, Greek mythological story itself, right? And I'm not going to do that. But the concept of mentoring is, or the concept of mentorship. Mentor, who is a mentor, right? You need to understand it. A mentor is a person who is the role model in my life, right? A mentor is a person to whom I am following. I am following a particular person. And what is the objective? I follow a particular person so that I can imbibe some good qualities of that particular person in my personality. I can change my personality, right? So like that only, here whenever we do talk of this performance mentoring itself, as a performance coach, sometimes the organizations do appoint these mentors to the employees of the organization. Mentors are appointed. What is the basic objective? Objective is the development, general development, right? Whenever we do talk of this general development, I'm talking of development in all aspects related to the job and the organization, right? But at the same time, the objective is the psychological well-being of a person, right? And psychological well-being, question is, all of us, like nowadays, there's a huge debate on that. Like all of us, we do, work, we do have our own livelihoods, we do live a comfortable lifestyle, whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, we ask a particular question: are we happy? No. Most of the people say we are not. What is the reason? Sometimes people need to understand the basic meaning of this term, happiness. Right? This, satisfaction of physiological needs of the people, satisfaction of the basic needs of the people, right? What we call it as the physical assets, physical facilities, make the people happy, but for a very short term period, right? What is required is a continuity in happiness. So that is what that will provide the individual employees a psychological well-being. We say that proper emotional stability should be there, proper work and life balance should be there, whereby the employee will feel prosperous at the place of work. The employee will be happy at the place of work. The basic concept of mentoring is that whereby the employee is basic psychological development would be there. So what is the objective? Objective is to develop the level of trust among the people in the organization, right? Employees and the manager itself. Modeling these behavioral norms, right? Whatever it means, we will talk of all of those things. Listening to the problems of the person, searching for alternative solutions, sharing his relevant experiences, responding to the emotional needs of the people without making him dependent on the mentor itself, right? Let the individual employee to grow and be independent, right? And developing long-lasting personal and informal relationships. That is what the basic concept of mentoring is all about, right? So through mentoring, what we want is that a long-term relationship whereby we can really overcome all the obstacles of the career of a particular person, and the person should be ready to take up more responsibility. So there are two types of mentoring, right? There is a natural mentoring and there is a planned mentoring. So natural mentoring happens every time when you accept someone as a role model, may it be your friend, may it be your father, mother, may it be your teacher, whoever it may be, right? So you accept some of the positive things and You develop your personality on the basis of that. But sometimes this planned mentoring process occurs through these structured programs, right? Where the mentors and the participants they undergo through some of the formal processes, and this formal processes helps in three different aspects, right? One is this dependence phase, interdependence phase, and counter-dependence phase. Dependence phase is where the mentor is followed by the employee himself, right? With some sort of you know, relevance that the employee finds within that mentor. So the employee depends on that mentor. And phase of interdependence, where there is a level of trust, there is a level of faith, mutuality is there. So gradually the mentor and the employee they begin to collaborate. And counter dependence, you know, that may reject that mentor and may develop his own interdependence, right? Independenceness. That's what we need to talk. So that is how we need to understand the basic aspects of this performance counseling, coaching, and mentoring as the most important processes for us. So let us end it over here. And thank you very much for your kind listening. Once again, we'll meet for the next session. Thank you.